Okay, I thought we'd use the old 1600 for a backdrop on this video. So this next video that you're about to see is the last video that I have that I bought at that auction. And for this one, I wanted to do a quick intro to kind of explain the historical significance of what you're about to watch. As far as the ag industry is concerned. It is a long video. It is literally a guy standing in front of a podium talking for an hour and a half. So might be best to take in multiple segments. And it's also one of those where watching it, you're not going to gain a whole lot from sitting in front of the screen the whole time because there's not a whole lot happening. So it's kind of one of those things where if you're interested, you just turn it on and let it play in the background while you're doing something. But there is a lot of information dumped in here about the formation of AGCO and how everything sort of happened. And at this point, it was fresh because when this video, at least the way it's dated, this video was filmed on AGCO's first birthday, June of 1991. So at this point, what you're about to watch, Robert J. Ratliff, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically there was four main people who helped form AGCO, and Robert J. Ratliff is kind of the guy that spearheaded it all because he already had his foot in the door because he worked for Deutz while they still owned Alice. So he was the spearhead. And what you're about to see is Robert J. Ratliff basically at the first AGCO dealer meeting ever, or group of dealer meetings ever, because the way it sounds, they did 3 different ones at the same location for the different dealer groups, and I'll explain that here in a second. He goes through basically his beginnings in the equipment industry. I didn't know that he started out working for International Harvester. How he got in with Deutz, the Deutz AGCO transfer of power, how that whole thing went down, kind of how the dealings went, and then basically that first year of building up AGCO, which a lot happened in that first year. I mean, a lot. And basically when this video got filmed was right after the first phase of the white purchase, after they got the tractor line, because they actually got the white line in a couple different steps. The tractors came first and the rest came later. And if I remember right, the rest of the white purchase kind of was wrapped up by 1993. So it took them a couple years to make all that happen, but that's when they got the planters and the tillage line and all that stuff. But the tractors came first, and this is right after that happened. So the Alice guys are probably going to be a little up in arms because he talks about when they left West Alice and why, which I don't know what. The Alice guys, of everybody under the AGCO umbrella, the Alice guys seem to be the ones with the biggest, I guess for lack of a better term, stick up their butt about AGCO, and I don't fully understand why, because AGCO didn't kill Alice. Alice was dead the minute they signed the contract with Deutz. That Deutz killed Alice Chalmers. AGCO just tried to pick up the pieces. And AGCO was the one that brought the orange back, so you at least need to be happy about that. At least the orange stuck on a lot longer than the white silver did. So of everybody, Alice guys have the least to complain about with AGCO, but for some reason they complain the most, and it just is what it is. But so And then like I said, I explained the way it sounds, just from what I picked up in this video, it sounds like they did 3 sets of dealer meetings at the same location. This was in, if I remember right, Independence, Missouri, at a farm. It sounds like they did one for the Heston dealer group, which they took on Heston in their first year. It sounds like they did one for the Deutz Alice dealer group, and it sounds like they did one for the White dealer group. And the way this video is edited, it kind of makes it sound like all this video was filmed at one individual dealer meeting. It sounds like they took about 3 days, kind of a day where everybody showed up and they did a rundown, and then a field demo day, and then a question and answer day kind of thing is what the way they made it sound, or kind of how I picked it up in the video. And the video is actually split up. The first hour is the opening remarks from the first day, and then the last 30 minutes is the closing remarks and he's kind of answering questions that they had got throughout the course of the meeting. Like I said, they make it sound like this was all filmed during one particular dealer group. I don't think that's the case. I think they actually filmed this during 2 separate groups. I think, I could be wrong, but just the way I was picking things up watching the video, I think the first hour, the opening remarks, were actually filmed during the Heston dealer group meeting, because in the first hour, while he's giving a rundown, he uses Heston dealers as in a lot more of his examples, and it kind of sounds like that's what it sounds like he tailored that part of his speech towards the Heston guys. And then the last 30 minutes, the closing remarks, it is very obvious that he is talking to the White dealer group, because he's talking about the White tractors. He talks about why they killed the American 60 and 80 line, which I'm not going to call it a mistake. It just sucks, because the Americans here, the 60 and the 80 American tractors, were the last tractors built in the United States under 100 horsepower. The 60 and the 80, everybody else in that under 100 horsepower classes of tractors was sourcing them from Europe, Central and South America. They were sourcing them from outside the country. The 60 and the 80 were the last under 100 horse tractors built in the United States. And because of that, they couldn't compete with the price point of all the offshore tractors, so it made them very hard to sell because they were more expensive. And the only way they could sell them was to discount them to the point where they were actually losing money on the tractors, because it cost more to produce them, because they were building them onshore, which is just completely asinine that this country got to the point where it costs more to build something here than it did to build it offshore, but I digress. So he talks about why they killed the American line. He talks about AGCO parts, White parts. So the last 30 minutes is very in tune with the White AGCO merger, and then the first hour, like I say, it sounds like he's talking more to the Heston Fiat group. So that's kind of just how it feels like it got laid out to me. So that's why I say I think this was actually filmed during 2 different dealer meetings, which all happened on that same farm. They just brought the dealer groups in separate. About the 30-minute mark, the audio in this the audio speeds up like a split second faster than the video, and it gets pretty obvious. Unfortunately, there's nothing I could do about that. So, but like I say, this is probably one of them videos where you're better off to just get it playing in the background and listen. And if you want to pick up all the information that's in it, honestly, it's probably going to take more than one watch, because like I say, especially that first hour, there is a lot of information unloaded about the formation of AGCO and how things progressed in that first year, and it's pretty crazy stuff. So like I say, It's definitely worth the watch. I know probably a lot of people aren't going to watch it because of the length, which sucks to be them because they're missing out on a lot of information here that's pretty historically significant, so at least in my opinion, because we basically watched the birth of an entirely new farm equipment company in the span of a year. And like I say, AGCO catches a lot of flack because of all the lines that they took on and then slowly phased out. AGCO didn't kill any of these lines. The lines were basically dead by the time AGCO took them on, and they were just trying to salvage what they could out of a mess. Like I say, Alice was dead the minute they signed on with Deutz. They lost so many customers. Like this area here, this area was really heavy Alice till Deutz came in, and you don't see any green tractors around here. Deutz Alice in this area killed Alice Chalmers. They were done. And that can be said for a lot of areas that were heavy in Alice. The minute the tractors turned green, that was it. That was the end of it. Same thing. By this time, White, the name was so tarnished from all the crap that they had pulled. It was just about dead. That's why AGCO was able to pick them up. So AGCO wasn't killing anything. They were just picking up pieces. It is what it is. They don't deserve the flack they get. Would it be nice if they would have stuck with the heritage colors? Yeah. But over time, that makes it really hard to build a brand image. And you know, you go to a John Deere dealer, you expect to get a green and yellow tractor. You go to Case dealer, you expect to get a gray and red tractor. You go to a New Holland dealer, you expect to get a blue and white tractor. You go to an Alice dealer, you're going to get a rainbow. It's a whole lot easier if they just have one color tractor. That's the way the world works, so there's no sense in getting worked up about it. But anyway, like I say, I just wanted to give a brief explanation, although it didn't turn out that brief, of what you're about to watch. So with that being said, here's Robert J. Ratliff giving his opening remarks at the first ever set of AGCO dealer meetings.
It's a get acquainted time when you get to know us and we get to know you. But I think it's important that you recognize we're a pretty open group. We don't have too much formality, and you'll soon learn that we share things pretty much face up. So I'd like to just kind of get acquainted in an old-fashioned way and introduce myself. And if any of the credit firms are out there, I just assume they didn't take all this down. They'll be chasing me. But I was fortunate enough to be born in Wichita, Kansas. Although I wasn't there long enough to know anything about Wichita, I moved on to Oklahoma and then into Baltimore, where I grew up. My dad was with International Harvester Company for 35 years as a credit manager, so you can imagine I learned tight money control from an early age. I went on to the University of Maryland and graduated there in industrial engineering and went to work for International Harvester Company in the truck business. I spent 28 years with International Harvester in the truck group, had a very interesting and enjoyable experience there, and I did a lot of different jobs, as most people do in large corporations. But I think it's important to maybe share with you that while I moved through the chairs, so to speak, in wholesale business, retail business, product development, business management, vice president of marketing worldwide, product development worldwide. We got into all kinds of things. I had the experience to work and be responsible for corporate entities in England, Holland, South Africa, Spain, Venezuela, Mexico, Australia, Singapore, the Philippines, New Zealand, Saudi, Kuwait, Iran, and Iraq. We covered a lot of areas, traveled a lot, but then we got into the opportunity to work on joint ventures in countries like Germany, Italy, France, Japan, Mexico, Brazil, and of course had the experience of being a part of undressing or downsizing International Harvester as it began to break up. My last job there was president of the export company, so I had a little experience in overseas sales. I left there in about 1983 and I went to Uniroyal Tire Company. I was the president of that organization, and I really got a nice experience there. It was a turnaround situation, and I was invited to try to do something to manage the business to make it a success, and we were very successful. Normally, one would consider that if you're successful, you're safe. But unfortunately, after we had made quite a bit of money and eliminated our unfunded pension, we were raided by a guy by the name of Carl Icahn. So we had to do an LBO to protect ourselves, and we did it with a pretty famous company called Drexel Burnham with junk bonds. That worked out so well that we created so much debt we had to liquidate the company to pay off the debt to get out of the business. So I don't know whether that was success or not. We'd have been better off not to make money in the first place. I did some consulting work with Booz Allen out of Chicago in the areas of tires and trucks and dealers and things like that. And in 1988, I was contacted by the German company, KHD, to join them as the president of Deutz Alles and try to turn around this business. I think it's fair to report some of the things that weren't in the film. By 1988, KHD had lost over $500 million in this business through their, not only the acquisition price, but the profits each year. And it wasn't really the most exciting job I'd ever thought about, but it certainly was challenging. In 1987, they had lost over $80 million on about $300 million of sales. And the year before that, about the same thing. So they made it attractive, and we took the job. I think it's also important for you to know that having accepted something like that, I didn't know anybody at Deutz Alles. I'd never met anybody there. Least of all, I didn't know anything about farm equipment. My only experience was working with dealers. And at IH, that was my bread and butter. I grew up knowing the dealer organization, and I always look with pride back on the dealers that we had there. And I share with most of my new friends a story that I think is important to relate to you tonight. While we were at IH and we wanted to be successful in the truck business, we felt that a strong dealer network was the real key to success. And we set about deciding what was the epitome of distribution, who had the best system in the world. And as we sat around the room and tossed out ideas, we all decided it had to be a Caterpillar distributor, because he was never home. He was on his boat or in his airplane or playing golf someplace. It had to be the best system. So we took a set of criteria about how he succeeded and said that's what we want our IH truck dealer to be. And we went to work on that. We converted some 250 company-owned retail stores to dealers, got out of the retail business as a manufacturer, and got the business going so much that our truck dealers began to succeed and do very well. And if you follow truck business at all, you'll find out that we became #1 in market share in heavy trucks, Class 8, Class 7, and Class 6. We beat them all. And I guess I can report to you tonight they still are. Because as IH fell into deep difficulty with lots of its debt problems, it was that very set of dealers that helped finance their continuance. So I'm kind of proud of my association with dealers. I think it's as American as you can get, and there is success in a good franchise system. So as I joined Deutz Alles, it was only obvious that I looked for some help, and I enlisted 2 of my associates that had worked with me at IH and at Uniroyal, and I'll introduce them to you later tonight. One is Jim Seaver, who is the Vice President of Sales, and the other one is a fellow by the name of John Shimeda, who is the Senior Vice President of Operations for our company today. And they came with me to Deutz Alles, and we began to try to find the things that were necessary to change the company and try to get it back on its feet. We didn't perform any miracles and we didn't use any mirrors. We went about business as it should be run in a very basic way. And I think it's important to let you know that at the end of 1989, we had an operating profit. It was not impossible. We didn't have to do anything overwhelming, although we did eliminate a lot of the wasteful practices. In 1989, around Thanksgiving, I made my monthly trip to Germany. When you're owned by Germans, they always want to have a meeting every month and find out what's going on, so they used to haul me over there every month and give a report on the business. And this one evening in November, they invited me out to dinner. I should have known something was up because they never bought me dinner, and I should have been suspicious. And they even took me to a very fine restaurant right on the Rhine River in Cologne, and it was a beautiful sight. And as we ate, all of a sudden one of them said, "How would you like to buy the business?" I never went to work for Deutz Alles to buy the business. I was very satisfied working on the project we were working on. And I said, "Well, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it." And they said, "Well, if you did buy it, how would you pay for it?" And I said, "Well, since I don't have any money, I guess I'd go to a bank." They said, "Which bank would you go to?" I said, "I don't know. I think I'll go to Citibank, I guess." And they said, "Well, don't go there. We don't want you to talk to them." And the story went on, and I felt like I was meeting with the Godfather. He was making me a deal I was going to take one way or the other. So we came home and collected around us 4 other people who were intimately involved in the management of the business and said, "Is there a way you could put this company together and make it go forward? Is there a way that this could be a success?" And we worked at it and began to construct a new business plan for Deutz Alles under American ownership. When it got all through, it looked pretty good to us, and we tested it. And so then we made them an offer. And they accepted the offer on the condition we could find the money, which was reasonable enough since they didn't think we had any. And they weren't used to American LBOs and things like that, so we went shopping for the money. I don't know how many of you remember January 1990, but that was the worst time in the world to go shopping for money. Nobody wanted to lend anybody anything. And not only that, highly leveraged transactions were taboo with the government. So you just couldn't find money very easily. And we hired a fellow to help us try to find money. And he told me at the beginning, he said, "Bob, don't get nervous. We're going to go after this. We're going to win and lose this program 12 times before we ever get there." He was a little wrong. It was about 14 times we won and lost the program. We had competition in that transaction. We found out all of a sudden in the midway into the effort to make the deal that Allied Products was trying to buy the company also. So now we had competition. Trying to borrow money on a normal leverage buyout was very difficult. And we thought of a new idea, something that seemed logical. And what it amounted to was taking the receivables of the company, that is the sales to dealers that are wholesale receivables on your books, and selling them to somebody, getting the money, and paying off the Germans. So we shopped around for somebody that wanted to buy dealer receivables. And we found a company by the name of Whirlpool Finance Corporation. They were aggressively approaching some of the capital venture markets. They liked our idea. They liked the looks of our dealers. They liked the look of our products and our business plan. And they bought all of our wholesale receivables. Quite an amount of money, as a matter of fact, more than we needed to pay the Germans off. So we had all this cash, and we paid off the Germans, and we put the rest in the bank. I want to share with you 2 little things we also did just to fill you in on some of the insignificant items that avoid rumors. When we paid the Germans or negotiated the deal, and if I ever get a chance to retire, I'm going to write a book about this experience because it was one of the most exciting times in my life. But we seemed to renegotiate the deal every week, and it got rather difficult to live with that. But as we got near the end, and we knew they had a deadline, we began to negotiate a little bit more seriously, particularly since we had the money. And one of the items we were very concerned about was the environmental condition of the facilities we were buying. You don't want to buy something that might be dirty, because later on you could get hit with the government coming after you for several $1 million to clean up. So we made the Germans guarantee to pay for the cleanup. And we didn't know what it was going to cost, so we held back $10 million. And we're still holding it. We'll probably hold it for another 3 or 4 years, but cleanup's probably only going to be a couple $1 million, but in the meantime, we didn't have to pay them all of that money. The second part of that is one that's a little bit more humorous, and that was, if you buy something at less than $1 value, like 60 cents on the dollar, that's as an example, when you sell the 40 cents worth in inventory or whatever it might be, it's taxable immediately by the federal government, and it's called alternative minimum tax, 15% immediately. So at the final hour of our negotiations, and the Germans had a 5 o'clock plane, they had to get home, we were negotiating this last point, and I was accusing them of causing this serious problem because they had sold the business to us so cheaply. And I wanted them to pay the tax. My partner left the room. He was so embarrassed. But we got $10 more million. We didn't have to pay them, so we put that in the bank. My point in telling you this is that our transaction in the purchase of KHD was quite lucrative for us. It allowed us to eliminate all our debt and put money in the bank, and we owed no one. A rather unique start that has been coined by some writers as a UBO, an unleveraged buyout. We also made a deal with Whirlpool whereby they would continue to finance wholesale receivables on an ongoing basis so that we had cash immediately for any billing we made to a dealer. And that has worked very successfully. I would share with you at any time that our balance sheet, still today, after the acquisitions we've made, has no bank debt whatsoever. We have cash in the bank, we have an excellent equity position, and I'll put our balance sheet up against anybody in the agricultural business, including the giants, as one of the soundest balance sheets you could find anywhere. We're kind of proud of that, and we're going to keep it. But I wanted to share it with you because I think you want to know a little bit more about us. And that's one of the most important things we can tell you. We are financially sound, and we're ready to do business. Well, as I kind of go on to bring you up to date, a lot of things have happened in 1990. But before I do that, I would like to cover just a couple of more important items. The other partners that helped buy the business, besides Jim Seaver, who's Vice President of Sales. Jim, are you around? You can't see him in the dark, but you'll get acquainted with Jim. John, are you here tonight? Here's John. John Schmader is our Senior Vice President of Operations, runs the combine plant, engineering, all the product development. Ed Swingle. There is Ed. He is the Vice President of the Parts Division. And Bob Holman, who is our Controller and Vice President, better not be here. We left him back to run the business, so I hope you'll get acquainted with him, I'm sure, in time. We have an equity partner. When we went to the banks, they didn't know anything about the 5 of us. We looked pretty ragged, I think. So we went out and invited an equity partner. His name is, or the name of the firm is, Hamilton Robinson and Company. And it's run by Hamilton Robinson, who we know as Tony. And Tony is an investment manager. He has pension funds and savings funds from companies like United Technologies, Penn Mutual Insurance, many major companies in the United States, and he invests their money for them. And he manages that investment into our business. So he became a major equity partner. As such, the investments that he manages represents 70% of the stock ownership of AGCO. We individuals only own about 30%. So he is an instrumental part of our future, and the reason he was selected is he has a lot more money. He's not here either. Don't send him this tape, Tim. We have a very, very nice relationship with Tony and the board that has been selected, and we're really enjoying ourselves as we move along in the business. Just to cover a little geography with you and tell you a little bit more about us, we have several facilities. Here at Independence, Missouri, it's about 10 miles from here, is our combine plant. We produce the Gleaner combine and the headers there. We employ about 600 people in that facility. They do several things besides the direct assembly and manufacture of the combines. We have our Dealer Central unit there, which is this, you saw it in the film, you'll learn more about it, but it's the telemarketing group that we use to sell product to dealers. Now, I don't know how you all deal with other companies or with Heston, but we don't want our field people selling dealers' products. We want our field people selling farmers' products with you, helping you complete a retail sale. So we have a telemarketing group called Dealer Central that calls on the dealer on the phone, makes sure he's got inventory and that it's being moved around or transferred or ordered or whatever is necessary. It's a very efficient system that I think you'll find that you like very, very much. But they're located here at Independence. Our wholesale accounting department is here at Independence. Our engineering for all of our products is here at Independence. So it's a very major facility for us. The next one that's quite important is Batavia, Illinois. That's just outside of Chicago. That's where Ed Swingle and the parts division is located. That's our main warehouse. We employ some 350 people there. And then we have regional warehouses in Toronto, Harrisburg, Atlanta, Dallas, Sacramento, Regina, and now we've added one more in Denver, and of course there's one in Calgary. Well, that's a little bit about our history. There is one other little office, you saw it in the film, that's in Norcross, Georgia. And I've had a lot of people say, why are you in Norcross, Georgia? That isn't where anybody does any farming. Well, you try to tell some guy from Georgia that and you'll get him real excited, because there are a lot of peanuts grown down there and a few other things. But the reason we're in Norcross, just to settle you down on that one, is none of us lived there. It was a matter that we were in Milwaukee. And as you can think about it a second, you would realize that we were living in the facilities of Alice Chalmers. It had been there for 75 years. And the building we were in was only 50 years old, but it was deeply entrenched with all of the traditions of Alice Chalmers, including the employees. And every time we came up with a new idea, I would go out to my secretary and say, well, what do you think of this? And she said, that won't work. We never did it that way. And it got kind of tiresome. And I finally said, how long have you been here? She said, I've been here about 40 years. And I said, well, boy, that's a long time. She says, my sister's downstairs. She's been here 35 years. And my mother was here 30 years before that. Kind of give you the idea. We couldn't start a turnaround. We couldn't get to a clean sheet of paper in that environment. And we picked the whole company up and moved to Georgia. We could have gone to Dallas or any place. Now, we didn't take them all with us, though. We left a few behind. Out of 150 some, we took 35 to Atlanta and started over. People in Atlanta are nice folks. They didn't know you couldn't do anything. So we've moved out, and we have a nice facility down there. And the reason we picked Atlanta, at the time, we were still owned by KHD. It's the fact that the most important thing for headquarters is to be near an airport, because we can't locate it near anybody's farm. We got to get near an airport. And the Atlanta airport provides us with access to any city in North America in rather good time. Even being in Milwaukee, you always had to go to Chicago before you could get anywhere. And the major cities we looked at were Dallas or Atlanta. And the other deciding factor was, when you're owned by Germans, if you're in the Eastern time zone, you're 1 hour closer to them, and they wanted that. So that's why we're in Atlanta. Nice place, though. We enjoy it. Well, I've told you a little bit about us. I don't want you all to stand up and give me your own history. We'd be here all night. But I certainly want you to know we want to get acquainted. We have a practice of kind of sitting down and talking. And you'll find that in the coming months, we'll have what we call interface meetings. I go out along with some of the management that I've mentioned, and we get in a room and we'll maybe have all the dealers in a region together, and we sit down and talk about the business. We don't come with a script, and we aren't selling anything. We're there to listen and learn. And we share ideas. We share our ideas with you, and we want you to share yours with us, your problems, whatever the situations are. We've been doing this for about 2 years with Deutz Alice dealers, and I think you can call them up, ask them, and they'll tell you pretty straightforward that these are very meaningful events where we learn about how to improve our business. We act on what we hear. We listen very well. We think that the knowledge to make a good organization or a good company is right here in this room. I've already told you I don't know anything about farm equipment. I won't, even though I cut wheat the other day, it was crooked. I just went all over the field. But that's not our job. Our job is to figure out how to run this business so that the company you're doing business with is stable, sound, and it's going to be here for many years to come. I was really given a couple of main subjects that I'm supposed to do here tonight. I think it's important to share with you that there's a lot of people who worked awful hard to put a show on that you're going to see tomorrow. And so everybody has a role, and mine was to do two things. One is to introduce this new logo to you that's right here on the podium. This is the umbrella logo of AGCO. And you'll begin to see this on all of our products, whether it's a Deutz Alice product, a Heston product. It'll replace the marijuana weed. And on the whites, isn't that what it is? Somebody told me it was a marijuana weed. I didn't. And we'll have it on the white products. But this is the parent company. We work for AGCO. And we think you're going to hear an awful lot about AGCO pretty soon. It's kind of unique that you all have the good fortune to celebrate with us our birthday. It's tomorrow. We're 1 year old. June 22nd, 1990, we bought this company, and we were so excited. We all had planned to celebrate, but we were exhausted. We all fell asleep. So maybe we'll celebrate tomorrow. How's that? Anyway, I want to have another project here tonight. That's to introduce the show tomorrow and also give you a little scope about what the future might look like. I know if I were you, I'd be sitting there with a lot of questions on my mind. How's this business going to be run? What's going to happen? Who's going to do what? And so maybe I can relate to you some of those things that'll clean it up. And if I don't, then we'll talk some more. When we started out with our business plan, we established a few objectives that we said, if we're going to be this new company, how can we survive in this very difficult industry? And we came up with rather simple objectives. They're not too sophisticated. But first of all, we believe that one objective must be met at all times, and that is that we achieve profitable growth. I want to assure you that we have no intention whatsoever of ever losing money. We are not going to operate at a loss. We are not committed to anything that would force us to operate at a loss. Making a profit is not dirty. It's not criminal. It's the most healthy, positive thing you can do in American industry. And we believe we know how to do that and still succeed. Secondly, it will be our objective to maintain corporate stability at all times. You know, most of us have come from somewhere in the industry. We have a lot of employees that were at Allis-Chalmers, or they were at Deutz Alice, or they were at Heston, or they're from White, and on, and they've lived on the edge long enough. And we're not going to live on the edge. We're going to know that we have a job tomorrow and the next day and into the next decade by maintaining good stability and not getting caught up in some battle of stupidity. And I say stupidity, I hope that you recognize that we think we can avoid many of the pitfalls in this industry by not doing dumb things. Most of the negatives that have impacted the whole industry, in my own mind, and since I'm new I can say this, were created by management of the major companies in the industry, including International Harvester, who we knew very well. There is no logic in battling for market share and losing hundreds of millions of dollars. It just doesn't make sense. So you're going to find that our strategies deal with how to be profitable, your profit and ours. If you're not a success, we're not a success. We don't have any other outlet for distribution. The third objective gets kind of redundant, and that is we expect a return on investment. A return on your investment in your business, a return on our investment in our business. And if we run it right, that ought to occur. We have some long-term strategies to achieve these objectives that I should share with you. The number one objective is distribution, a strong dealer network. A little later, I'm going to tell you just how strong you are in a dimension you hadn't thought about before, I'm sure. But we really feel very strongly about dealers. Let me give you an example. When KHD purchased Allis-Chalmers in 1985, there were 1,650 dealers for Allis-Chalmers. Tonight, there are only 700. Now, you may think they quit us, but we quit them. We eliminated dealers that are not financially sound, that don't represent our products properly, that are not effective in the marketplace, and do not provide the image that we think is necessary to go forward. And I'm not throwing out a challenge, but I'm just saying we think that's what's necessary to succeed, so that the 700 dealers we have tonight at Deutz Allis are the core dealers who represent 100% of our business, and we get a good spread from all of them. Secondly, we believe that our products must have excellence at all times, that we should have specifications not designed by some foreign engineer, but specifications for the North American market. I share with you an experience I had with KHD, and I'm sure this never happened anyplace else except in Germany. But as I made my monthly trips there and I asked for specifications like row widths on the tractor so we don't knock down all the crop, I had a German engineer tell me, "There's nothing wrong with that tractor, change your farmer." That kind of attitude is not what we call marketing. That kind of attitude is how you go out of business. So our commitment is to products that respond to the needs of the farmer. And we get those ideas from you and him. We don't design them in some closet someplace. The second part of product is quality. We don't hedge on the nickel items. We believe that if we're going to put a product on the marketplace, it's going to exemplify an image that we can be extremely proud of and that will assure the buyer he got value for every nickel he paid for it. He may have paid a little bit more, but he will get more value than he got from anybody else. You may not understand that as much tonight as you will tomorrow night, because tomorrow you're going to get a chance to see products of a quality nature I don't think you've ever seen before. I haven't. I'm overwhelmed. But we can talk about that individually tomorrow night. The third strategy that we would introduce to you as being utilized to achieve our objectives is that of cost control. Whether it's expenses of our field people, or whether it's the method we do business out of our headquarters, or the manufacturing costs that we generate in our plants, or the costs we have to pay for our supplies, we look for the least cost, highest quality situation we can generate. And a lot of the things we do are based on improving that cost basis, because that's the only way we can build in our margin and your margin for that profit that we hold so dear. In the past year, we've moved out on those strategies and tried to do some of those things. We'd like to report to you we've had some success. I've already indicated we've rationalized some of the dealers. We've rationalized some of our products. We got out of the lawn and garden business. We found that it was not profitable. Yet, just so you understand what we did, we sold our lawn and garden business to Simplicity. And Simplicity sells the product under our name to our dealers as Deutz Alice Lawn and Garden Products. So if you go into a Deutz Alice dealer and you see lawn and garden, you'll say I'm loony, but the idea is that Simplicity sells that product with our name. We license it for them, and we get a royalty for that license, and now I can guarantee you we make money on lawn and garden products. We've looked at the hay tool business, and our supplier used to be Greenland, and their costs went out of sight as the inflation escalated in Europe and the exchange rate went negative, and we no longer could afford to buy the product. And it was one of the main reasons that Heston looked so attractive to us. It brings me to the KHD tractors. I think it's fair to relate to you that when we made the agreement with KHD to buy the company, we also executed some supply agreements that allow us access to the KHD tractor, which we call the Deutz Alice tractor. And they've experienced the same thing as Greenland, some inflation, a negative exchange rate, and certainly a very depressed agricultural market in Europe. They also had placed heavy bets on the growing market in eastern Germany, which, as most of you know, has not materialized. So that their costs to us have been very negative, and we've had to deal with that in our offering of our tractors, and I'm going to talk about that a little more in a moment. We've done the normal cost reduction things that you might expect, trimming excess personnel, and certainly identifying those facilities that we didn't need. We've closed a parts warehouse here in Kansas City. We closed a whole goods warehouse in Richmond, Indiana. And of course, by leaving Milwaukee, we left 5 buildings and moved into one. And the other one we attacked, of course, was interest costs. Since we don't have any bank debt, we don't have any interest costs. So we really attacked that one pretty good. Well, as we've gone forward and tried to implement these strategies, we've identified that there are about 4 items that we keep uppermost in our mind. The first one is utilization of assets. Whether it's cash in the bank, we keep it invested at the highest rate we can find. Whether it's a facility, we try to keep it full. If it's a person, we try to keep him busy. And one of the areas that we've really identified as an opportunity in these recent acquisitions is the utilization of our field salespeople. We had folks that traveled 80,000 miles a year. Well, if you figure out how many hours there are in a year, he didn't get much time selling. He was behind the wheel all the time. But in our new organization, his travel will be reduced, and he'll be far more effective in presenting our products with you to the farmers. We look at efficiency in the way we apply every asset of our business. And certainly, we're always identifying with quality. I think we've tried to characterize quality not just in products, but in the way we do business and in our people. And that will only take time for you to identify. Well, with all those things going for us, I'm pleased to report to you that in December 31st, 1990, we closed the first 6 months of our business, and on a net profit basis had made about $8 million. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but compared to other companies that lose $125 million in a quarter, that's not doing too bad. Our cash flow was a positive $20 million. That went in the bank with all that other good money we had still left over from the purchase. Our settlements were pretty much right on plan. Our inventories had been reduced so that we were at a position of low inventory level in December and not in a situation of distressed merchandise as the recession took effect and the war effect of the Mideast hit us in the first quarter of '91. So we were in pretty good shape. Our receivables were on balance, and we were quite pleased. All of our employees received a maximum bonus, and in most cases it equated to 30% of their salary. We have a happy group of campers. Year to date, as of May 31st, I can't relate to you any other way except to our plans, which I would only say to you always accelerate profits. We're ahead of plan on profits. We're ahead of plan on cash flow. We're a little behind on our settlements. Our inventory is on balance, and our receivables are on balance with the plan. So while other companies seem to be experiencing some difficulties, we're quite pleased with our position, and we still think that 1991 will be a reasonably good year before it's over. There's a tremendous amount of activity right now, and certainly it's been deferred from the first half because of those recessionary effects, but I think that there's still every reason in the world for us to feel very good about the farm economy when you still consider land values, farm income, farm debt, and low interest rates. This is still a very good business to be in. But let's talk about the future. If we're going to achieve growth, you have to identify that that growth is either going to come from within or through acquisitions. We've already identified growth from within, but that kind of growth takes a long time. It's a little slow. Acquisitions make things happen in a hurry. So I think it's only fair to relate to you for a moment the major agreements and acquisitions that have taken place in the last 12 months that might affect your business, might affect our company, and certainly generate the basis for our future. First, let's go back to the KHD agreement. When we purchased the company from KHD, we signed a 10-year supply agreement for KHD tractors and the Deutz diesel engines. We use the Deutz diesel engines in our combines and in our high horsepower tractors that were manufactured for us by White. It's a 10-year exclusive agreement, but it has some pitfalls. It allows the cost to escalate according to the inflation in Germany, and it is affected by the exchange rate. As a result, their prices to us, and I want to share a thought with you, their factory is in proximity, within less than 50 miles in a circle, of the Deere plant and the Case IH plant in West Germany. Their prices to us for 1991 model tractors escalated between 50 and 80%. And that includes exchange rate factors. When you consider that and the fact that when they owned this company, they subsidized those tractors, the impact has been quite substantial. With the decline of the European farm market, they eliminated several models, so that depending upon a supply of tractors from Germany, or from KHD particularly, became a situation that we had to deal with. We still provide the tractor, and tomorrow you'll see the introduction of their new models, as well as how we dealt with that situation. That's all I'm supposed to tell you, because this is a teaser now. We're going to get to the point where you're going to get up real early in the morning to want to go to the show. The next thing I can announce to you tonight is that we signed an agreement with a company called SLH of Italy. It's a 10-year agreement supplying us with a tractor of our own design. This company has a proven record of high-tech product design and high-tech features. They've won many international awards, and they are providing us now an AGCO identified tractor in as an OEM supplier. This product, I think you will notice, will be exemplifying the quality standards that we have identified, and it has a broad range of horsepower ratings from 40 to 120 horsepower. It follows the pattern of least cost and Certainly, I think that that's about all I'm supposed to say, because if I tell you much more, you won't want to go tomorrow, but you're going to see one of the most exciting product lines ever introduced in North America. Next comes the acquisition of Heston Corporation. And I'd like to give you a little detail to that might help you understand some of the voids in the information that you may have received. We purchased all of the stock of Heston Corporation. That means that you get the assets and the liabilities, the good and the bad. You get everything there is, except what you exclude specifically. It was purchased by AGCO, so it is a division of AGCO, and you'll see us refer to it that way. Among the many assets of Heston, as you readily know, was the 50-50 partnership relationship at Hay and Forage Industries, or HFI, where we share the ownership with J.I. Case. I don't know how much you know about that agreement, but I'd just like to clarify a couple of items. HFI has a very unique business, structure that is, and it is run by a management committee made up of 3 people from J.I. Case and 3 people from Heston, and it'll continue to be run that way. I've heard some rumors, I don't know who put them out, that our ownership was only for 3 years and then it went away or something like that. I don't know who would put out a rumor like that, but nevertheless, that's not true. We own 50%. And the only way you could lose share of this business is if you failed to take product out of the plant. And there is a requirement that if you maintain the 50-50 balance of taking product, then the ownership stays that way. I could give you an example. If J.I. Case took 60% out every year for a couple of years, and we only took 40%, then they would have the right to buy our 10%, or that deficit. It works the other way, too. If we take more than they do, we have the right to buy their share. And I think you're going to be excited to know that with the addition of more dealers and more opportunity, that we're going to be well established in our ratio of take out of the HFI facility. You know all about the products that come from Heston, and they'll all stay the same except for 2 items. One is the tractor line, the Fiat tractor, and the other one is the planter. We're still working to try to secure the planter for the business, but let's go to the tractor, because I think that's something that is a concern to all of you. There's a separate agreement that we've entered into with Fiat to handle tractors, and what we've agreed to do is help administer the liquidation of this product line from our point of view. I don't think they would say it that way. But we recognize that these tractors just aren't going to disappear. They got to go someplace. And so we have agreed, since they have no field organization to speak of, that we'll take inventories in your dealer locations, and if you sell one, we're needed, we'll collect for it for them and remit to them, or whatever might be necessary. I'd like to make something very specific and very clear to you. We have agreed with them that we would not enter your dealership and ask you to become a Deutz Alles dealer to handle a Deutz Alles tractor line, which resulted in your returning the tractors that you have to Fiat. And we've agreed not to do that. So while we may show you tractors tomorrow and we may talk about the potential of your being a Deutz Alles dealer, that cannot occur until the Fiat tractors are gone. If you get rid of them, whatever way you get rid of them, then we can talk to you. And as far as that's concerned, we'll come back to the Heston dealer contract in a moment, but I just wanted you to know that's an agreement we have with them. And I think a question in all of your minds is perhaps whether they're going to stay in the business or not. I don't have the exact answer to that. I have my own opinions, but we recognize that many of you need a tractor, and we have indicated to Fiat that we are prepared to provide you with a tractor should that one go away. And we can talk more about that later. How they'll handle that situation, we're still waiting to hear. As far as the parts are concerned, all of the Heston parts will be relocated from their current warehouses to our warehouses and those facilities that I talked about earlier. But we're not going to do that till later in the year, after harvest is over, so we don't disrupt the demand on parts. But they will be relocated in the fourth quarter. The planter, I said, was excluded. We're still trying to renegotiate the supply of that unit. You should recognize that in the acquisition, of course, we took in all the employees of Heston. They were our responsibility. But as we merged the Heston employees with the Deutz Alice employees, we quickly recognized we had too many people. And we had to draw new territory lines. And we've done that. And I think most of you are aware of that. And we had to let almost 30-some people go. I can report to you that about half of them were Heston people and about half of them were Deutz Alice people. And it's always one of the most unfortunate jobs that management has to do, but I think you must recognize it was a necessity. And none of the people we let go are bad people, but as you try to measure out the best, those decisions were done with a great deal of care. This has caused us to form a new organization that you will become familiar with, and we call that the AGCO sales team, because we're only going to have one group going to the field. And that sales representative that calls on you will also call on a Deutz Alice dealer. He'll also call on a white dealer. He has the biggest challenge in our company, to be able to do that effectively, know the products, and be able to deal with different dealers who are in competitive situations on occasion. We've worked on giving him adequate training and advice on how to do that. I can't help but tell you I've never been impressed more with a group of people than the people that came to us from Heston. They are an outstanding lot, and I have had the most enjoyable experience in the last 2 weeks working with them on the shows here. They've been living together practically in the rooms, sharing product knowledge back and forth, and I think you're going to find tomorrow an enthusiastic group of people that are turned on about the opportunity that AGCO provides, not only them, but you. And so we have melded those organizations together. It's done, it's behind us, and we're operative at the moment. As we talk about Heston dealers, of course, that kind of comes with the company, and you should know there are about 640 of them. If you're keeping score on the tablecloth with the 700 Deutz Alice dealers, we're getting up there now. And we've elected that the way we're going to administer these contracts is to keep them separate, administer them separate. We have no intent of infringing upon the franchise rights of any contract that's out there today. And I'll be very specific. If we were in a town that had a Heston dealer on one side of the street and a Deutz Alice dealer on the other side of the street, it's unlikely that either one of them will ever get the other one's contract, ever, unless something unusual would occur, because we're going to protect that. And we have established a department in our company called Dealer Business Management. It comes under the direction of Orman Scholl, and Orman is here, and you'll get to meet him tomorrow. And Orman is the person that is responsible to administer contracts. He decides who gets them and who doesn't. And we aren't interested in going to court and playing a lot of litigation or payoff or green mail or anything else. We're going to draw the line and not infringe on that investment that you have or one of our other dealers has. Now, if you happen to be 30, 40, 50 miles down the road, and there's no set ruling to this, because as you know, in one part of the country, 30 miles is close, and another part of the country, 100 miles is close. So this is something that's got to be looked at specific case, one case at a time. But let's assume if you were 50 miles apart and you wanted the Deutz Alice contract and the other guy wanted the Heston contract, and we talked to both of you ahead of time, and it wasn't a major infringement, we would sign those contracts. And out of all 600 of you, I don't know how many will be Deutz Alice dealers, but we speculate it'll be more than 100, and we are very pleased about that. Vice versa, there may be 100 of the Deutz Alice dealers that become Heston dealers and fill those voids or those territories that are not adequately represented tonight. The next thing that occurred was the purchase of the White tractor business. This just occurred as of June the 3rd. We've been working on it for quite a while. And considering their financial condition as of late, I don't know what I can say, but we were getting pretty nervous about it. So we went into talks with them on how we might help them and help ourselves. We purchased the tractor business from A to Z. If you could take the whole tractor business of White and lift it out of the company, that's what we bought. And in this case, we bought assets, not stock. So we didn't take any people, and we didn't take receivables. We didn't take a lot of things. We just took what we considered the most important items. For instance, we got all the trademarks of all the White products as far back as Cockshot, Minneapolis Moline, Oliver, everything that was part of the tractor business. We got all their patents, with many of them are more historic than value. We got the technology or know-how on how to produce a tractor and how to make it. Among that, the most important item to us was the production capability. This meant actually taking the production facility out of Coldwater, Ohio, and placing it into one of our factories. We got the jigs, the tooling, dedicated machines that produce parts for the tractor. Now we will be relocating that to one of our facilities, either here in Independence in the combine plant, or in Topeka, where we own a facility that's empty. It's a 250,000 square foot building, or perhaps even into the Heston plant, where they still have 25% excess capacity. That's unlikely, but we mention it because at this point we have not made the final decision, and it's always interesting to throw things out like this. I've had more fine, nice phone calls from the people in Topeka than I ever had in my life. I mean, they're interested in our coming over there, and now we're starting to get a few calls here in Independence. And when you're working with unions and a few other things, it's always important to kind of stutter on your decision. But if this were to go into our Independence plant, think for a moment the advantages that might occur. This would mean more productivity out of that plant with the same overhead, which in effect allows you to reduce your overhead absorption per dollar, and actually allows the cost of our combines to go down, as well as the tractors. So it has some very strong meaning to us, not only in the fact that we control our destiny, and we have given evidence to the universe that we have invested in our own production, which is very important to the farmers, but we also have a method to reduce our costs. The parts from White for all tractors will be relocated. As a matter of fact, they're already on the road, going into Batavia right now, and they'll go into our regional warehouses. They do quite a parts business, so this was a very attractive item in the purchase. We also bought all of the technology and engineering, which included some recent work on a power shift transmission and a next generation idea that we can't talk too much about, but should it work as it is working at the moment, it will exceed any transmission in any tractor known today in its operational value. We expect, if this project works, it'll be available this time next year. So we got all of that, and that was very important to us. In addition, we got the assignment of the White dealer tractor portion of his dealer contract. That represented 608 dealers. You're adding them up, we're getting up close to 2,000 dealers. That's the largest franchise network in North America. Granted, it's not all the same products, but we're building a pretty good universe for AGCO. I would have to admit to you, though, that of the 608 dealers, only about 300 of them do 90% of their volume. The rest are parts dealers who are doing quite well off of that huge population of history out there that we all pass by every day. When we go into production, we'll be producing our own high horsepower tractor and the white high horsepower tractor. Down the same line, they're different in engines and cabs, but we'll still continue to supply the white dealer with a tractor. We did not buy any of their hay tools or implements or anything else, so that's excluded. We didn't hire any of their personnel except for some engineers, which we'll be bringing into the engineering facility here in Independence. We didn't buy or hire any of their field salespeople. So again, you recognize that the AGCO sales team that I identified a moment ago is going to be utilized a lot greater than might be imagined. He's going to be calling on a white dealer, a Deutz Alice dealer, and a Heston dealer. He doesn't have to travel as far, and he'll be more efficient, and he'll be more highly utilized than ever before, which also reduces our cost. The white dealers will get their volume bonus for the full year. Their warranty will be administered by our company, and the terms and conditions on their contracts will be honored also. We will do the same kind of limiting of a white dealer contract as I spoke to you about with a Heston contract. It'll come under dealer business management, under Orman Scholl. He will be the one that makes decisions on who gets a white contract or what white dealer gets of any of the other contracts so that we don't infringe on anyone. They too will be introduced to AGCO Farm Finance immediately. We have a transition agreement with them that allows for them to continue production of these tractors until August 31st. There are products, but they're being, and we own the material going into them, but they'll produce them for us in Ohio until August 31st. We'll cease production and move that production capability to the new facility. We needed to do that in order to get the timing right for going into production of these new tractors in January of 1992. Last but not least, I think it's important to share with you what are the most important criteria for us as we have all of these agreements and these acquisitions in place at the moment. Where are we going? Now that we've got this massive, disjointed looking company, how do we put it together and make it effective? And this is not something that will be done in the next 30 days or even 30 months. It's an evolving situation that we think we can manage in its most effective form. We can boil down our strategies and operating philosophies into about 4 or 5 items. The first one, as I said before, that's most important to us is dealer development. We certainly don't want you to be misled. We feel much more strongly about the quality of a dealer than the quantity of dealers. So the fact that I mentioned 2,000 is not as important to us as how good our dealers are. We want a good image, and we want you to be proud of us. And we think if we identify on those things that can help us do that, it will enhance everyone's sales. We look at dealers as having to have a financial base that they can do business on. The day of the dealer that lives off of somebody else's money forever is long gone. And as we look into the crowd here tonight, and as I have for the last 3 meetings, I can't help but appreciate and respect that you're survivors. You've come through a decade of one of the worst situations I've ever read about. And I'm proud to be able to work with you, as all of our people are. But we also know that you didn't do it without using your head and being a sound business person as well. We look for dealers who have a strong local following. We believe in the principle that people buy from people they like, people that take care of them, and that product loyalty may be true, but your success as servicing your customer is more critical to your future than the product you sell. We believe in that. We like to have a dealer who has a balanced sales effort. He doesn't just sell parts, but he sells whole goods and parts. And obviously, we'd like to think that our dealers have a commitment to us equal to the commitment we have to them. And the area of product excellence is our number 2 priority. I've already mentioned we will emphasize customer specifications in our products. We'll try to provide an effective promotion program, whether it's Heston, whether it's White, whether it's Deutz Alice, and certainly provide adequate dealer training. There's nothing worse than to go to market and not be able to represent your product adequately. We'd like to introduce you to a policy that we believe in, and that's what we call the no-hassle policy. If somebody pays us money for a product, they deserve the total value that they expected out of that product. And even though we have warranties that exceed everybody in the industry, we go beyond the warranty in ensuring that the customer receives total satisfaction. And you'll find we go to some rather wild extremes that scare me every now and then. We take products back, we rebuild them, we'll do whatever to make sure it works exactly like that customer expected. Our sales team, I mentioned before, has a major job. We've indoctrinated them into maintaining fairness with all dealers, to represent their company, AGCO, with pride, and to operate within company policy at all times. We are a little short-sighted, I suppose, or nearsighted about discipline. We have policies. We expect that they be followed. We don't give too much room on people that can't understand instructions. And I hope you recognize that as you deal with our people. Their main purpose in life is to effectively help our dealers retail products. The next major priority is the AGCO Parts Division. With all these different divisions, we had to create a parts company as an umbrella to sell Deutz Alice parts or Heston parts or White parts. And you'll be introduced to that tomorrow. We expect them to excel over competition, to maintain a 95% fill rate, and as such, in addition to those servicing your needs, to promote the sale of what we call all makes parts, which interchange among all of the different manufacturers. The 5th item that we'll be promoting in the future is AGCO Farm Finance. I introduced that to you before, and you'll see more about that tomorrow, which is our retail financing arm, which we hope can service your needs as well as anyone you are doing business with today. I'd like to try to wrap this up with the objective that I was supposed to achieve at the outset, and that was to incite you into excitement over tomorrow. Our outlook for the future is pretty strong. We feel very, very good about the potential to have profitable growth. We'll continue to do some niche acquisitions. We're not finished, but I don't see any big things on the horizon like Heston. But we certainly still have some product niches that need to be filled, and we'll be looking for those opportunities. It may interest you to know that this company will exceed $500 million in volume in 1992. That's bigger than Allis-Chalmers ever was. We've grown that far, that fast. We've had a hard time at Deutz Alice because one of the things we heard frequently was that we had a image that was tarnished from the past or whatever. And yet tonight we feel pretty good about our image. We think we've come a long way. We are identified as having performed a turnaround. We certainly think, as we've indicated, that we're a stable company and that we've produced some significant results. I think it would be without saying that we're aggressive, and we think that we can provide an intelligent management in this industry that'll work. That brings us to tomorrow. We've invited you here, and you were so gracious to come at this time of the year when I know that you were needed back home. But we promise you, you're going to see something you've never seen before. Whatever your expectations are will be exceeded. And as I've told the Deutz Alice dealers, we're going to introduce to you tomorrow more new products than have ever been introduced in the history of Allis-Chalmers in one show. It'll be the biggest show probably ever put on in this industry. You're in for something of a treat. The new products that we provide are going to provide you a new opportunity for profit. The new products will kind of kindle your spirit as an entrepreneur to maybe do something more than what you've been doing. And what you see will do more to introduce AGCO to you than anything I could say tonight. You'll get the whole idea. We have before you the creation of a new company, AGCO. It's real. We have some fantastic new products that'll delight you. And this is a new family that we welcome you. I hope you'll accept us as friends and as partners. And we kind of look at this as a point in time where we begin our future. We'd like you to join us. We welcome you. We thank you for coming. Good night. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I hope you've found this meeting worthwhile, and getting acquainted with us has been a meaningful experience for you. I suggested to you last night that your expectations would be exceeded, and I hope you sense the image of AGCO coming together and the employee commitment that is witnessed throughout all of this showtime. If I could, I'd like to just make a few brief comments. It won't be very long, but I'd like to review some of the objectives I pointed out last night and see how they fit into your view of what you've seen today and experienced. First of all, that we wanted to be a least cost producer. That is, to control the manufacturing of our product in order to control the cost of what we sell, and to utilize our facilities in such a way as that we were an effective, efficient contributor to the business. Secondly, that we would seek product excellence, products that maintain the specifications that the North American farmers requested and that served their needs, that these would be specifications or products that had a full range covering everything from the bottom to the top, and that we would exhibit high technology and quality in all of our products. The third item that I said was one of our major objectives was that of distribution, a strong dealer network. And if I could be a little candid with you, I think I could suggest to you that we've worked real hard on those first two objectives, the cost control and the product excellence. And now we must focus on distribution. In the past couple of years in my association with this industry, I've learned to respect each and every dealer that's an ag dealer. I think that it has to be recognized that you're a survivor. You've gone through a decade of one of the worst depressions any industry segment has ever suffered, and you survived. That in itself is an achievement that you should be extremely proud of and that we recognize. Next, I've learned to respect your support of your supplier. The long dedication to White Products, to Heston Products, to Alice Chalmers Products is certainly unequaled in most industries, and I think you should be very proud of that. I've learned to respect your patience of us in getting started, getting things moving. And certainly I also recognize that there's some negatives, that among you and among other dealers, there's some of you that have been sitting on your hands, kind of waiting for something to happen, whatever that might be. Some of you have even been riding the fence, looking for a surviving supplier to carry you to your destiny. Some of you have been living in the past, recounting those 30 and 40-year experiences, waiting for the 70s to return again. And some of you have openly doubted our ability to pull this off, to succeed. And I don't question that. But I do notice one thing common about all of us. We've all been looking for a better opportunity, something more sure for our future. And I'd like to suggest to you tonight that that opportunity has arrived, that that opportunity is now. Now is the time to commit to some action, to make something happen. And today I saw that commitment beginning. I saw dealers ordering product. I saw dealers inquiring about the opportunities to expand their franchise. Dealers enlisting new systems for their business, and dealers planning product meetings with their sales managers for back home. The commitment to action has begun, not only in this group, but in 6 groups that preceded you. We have a movement underway. But I also learned today that you have some more questions. And my job was to answer all of your questions. So I'd like to discuss a few that were remaining. I had a question that said, can I cancel my tractor contract and return my inventory? Of course you can. If you don't sign the consent agreement, you're still doing business with White, and they don't have a tractor, so you're kind of out of the tractor business, and you can return all your tractors to White. If you do sign the consent agreement and you decide down the road that you want to get out of the business, you cancel your contract and you return your tractor and parts to us. So you have that freedom to do whatever you wish. If you were to terminate your contract, the question I had was, where can I get my parts? Well, if you give up your contract, you don't get your parts, because you have to have a contract to get parts. So you don't get one without the other. Another question I had was, will we have a dealer panel for White? And my answer to that is absolutely. We managed to have a dealer panel at Deutz Alice. We've already indicated to the Heston dealers that we'll have a dealer panel for them, and we would like to solicit a dealer panel with you. We feel very strongly about the opportunity to interface with dealers and learn your problems or your ideas or your suggestions, and also allow us to trade off some of our thoughts as to better ways to do business. So we will be initiating a dealer panel. Further, I'd like to advise you that we maintain what we call interface meetings. Frequently throughout the year, we will go out into the regions, call the dealers together, and in a very informal atmosphere, rap about the business, if you will. There's no fixed agenda. It's an open discussion of your thoughts, your problems, trying to identify rumors and what's real and what isn't. And we share with you the projects that we're working on. We have, as you might have guessed, a rather open management style. Everyone is available to you. There isn't a great formality in the way we do business. There is an ultimate customer that we're trying to serve, and you are our primary customer, and we're trying to serve you. So we invite you to solicit the help of any employee in our company if you have a problem. And if that doesn't work, let me suggest that you call me direct. I give my number to everyone. It's 404-246-6100. And if I'm there, I answer the phone. So if you have a real problem and you can't get it solved anyplace else, call me. I don't necessarily know how to fix the problems, but I know most of the people that can get them handled. And I assure you, they get handled. We're not trying to hassle you or the customer. We want to make it easy to do business. I had a question on finances. It's interesting what rumors will do. One of the questions was a little crazy, but it said, is Whirlpool Finance Corporation tied up with Fiat? Not to my knowledge. I don't think they even speak to each other. I mean, there's no relationship whatsoever between Fiat and Whirlpool, two totally different companies with no relationship whatsoever. Now, I have also had a few dealers report to us that they know, in fact, and they have been told or read someplace, that Ford financed our purchase of Heston. You better play the song again. If that's a fact, that's really a success story. That would really be a good one. If you think about it for a moment, there is no logic to that whatsoever. And yet I understand that it's published someplace, But if you could explain to me why Ford would finance our purchase of Fiat, I'd go try to do that. Use their money as well as anybody else's. But I can assure you, we paid cash, and we can prove it, and we'd be glad to, for whatever the reason that rumor's out there. I don't know. I had someone who might be one of those fence riders, or he's sitting on his hands, or he's been through, as somebody said, I've heard your speech several times before. And I appreciate that. I know that White particularly has been through a rather trying history, and I guess it's only logical for you to suggest those pitfalls that might occur. And the question that came at me was, what if Whirlpool stopped financing your receivables? What would you do? And I would only say to you, I'd get somebody else to finance the receivables. For your information, we're solicited rather heavily by Chase Manhattan Bank and by Citibank. There are other people that want to finance our receivables. The fact that we get a good rate and a good arrangement with Whirlpool is the reason we do business there. Obviously, they make money at it. It's not a nonprofit operation by any means. So I don't really believe that is a major risk. But if it were, there are some other alternatives. And that falls into the next question, which was, what if AGCO needs more money? Where are you going to get it? You can't just keep using this cash. It's going to run out. Well, that's right. But let me suggest to you that by not having borrowed any money, we have all the assets of the company to use as collateral to borrow money if we had to. So we have the ability to raise a lot more money from a debt, from a loan from a bank, by using our assets. Further to that, I think it's appropriate to tell you that we have the opportunity to go public and issue stock. That may appear premature to you, but I think I may have shared with you the other night that our internal objective is to operate in such a way as to perform with earnings and growth and cash flow in such a way as to permit us to go public within 3 years. We already are doing that. We are already being solicited by the major financial facilities in this country to go public right now. I'm not suggesting that we will, but I'm just suggesting to you it is an alternative to raise more money if we needed it. Someone else asked me a question that was kind of interesting, and that was, this Hamilton Robinson is one of your investors. How do we know they're going to stick around? Well, I think I'd have to share with you that there is a major investment philosophy that people have when they buy things. And you, of all people, as an audience, should relate to this probably better than anyone. There are some investors who buy things to liquidate them. We had that opportunity. When we bought KHD, we bought it at an attractive price. And if we were liquidators, we would be celebrating the liquidation tonight, because we would have just liquidated the company, made a lot of money, and gone away. But we elected not to do that. We elected to grow the company. And the investor that we have as an equity partner is a growth investor. He's interested, as we are, in growing the company and in growing each of the elements of the company. Perhaps you have recognized the liquidators in the past. I had another question. Would AGCO Alice provide mutter and vineyard specifications? And this is an issue with certain geographic areas, particularly like California. And the answer is yes, we will. But we did not introduce anything at this show we couldn't deliver tomorrow or have available right away. The mutter and vineyard specifications will not be available until the third quarter of this year, and so we did not discuss them at this show. Another question that I've had a lot from many of you is, when do we plan to merge all of this together? There must be a master plan that puts this all together. And if you do that, what's going to happen to me? Well, that's wrong, because we do not have a master plan to merge it all together. As a matter of fact, we approach the market entirely in a different way. Most of us are used to the fact that if you have one product, you push that right through the market with one identity, one dealer organization, and that's the way the business goes. Quite the contrary, we approach it totally different. We look at you as dealers, and what we need to do is provide you with product to put through your dealership, not just one. We may end up with 10 different products. And if you think that's an oddity and that we're inventing something, we're really not. May I suggest to you that in difference to a John Deere, there is a General Motors. Add up all the sales that all of you have made of the 60 and 80 series, it would exceed the production of that model by about 10 times. Reality, the same guy told me 5 or 6 times, I had to add all those up. But the point is, you must understand reality, and we face things exactly as they are. If they're different from that, we're willing to learn. We're very open, but we have to learn the facts. The facts are that the 60 series has been a major catastrophe for Allied Products, and the 80 series is a minor catastrophe. They have lost money on every one of the units they've ever built. It may be the reason they sold the tractor line. We are not going to repeat the mistakes that somebody else already made, but we're going to seek a better way to approach that market. You have to recognize that while the 60 and 80 series is a fine tractor, and we take no exception to that, it is a very costly tractor to produce, and the sales that you have generated, for the most part, have been generated only after some very dramatic discounts have been offered, which led to the losses on those products. In order for you to participate in those markets, we must provide you with a tractor that is competitive in cost and price and specifications. And we will assure you that it is our intent to provide you with a full product line with 60 and 80 horsepower tractors and maybe more if we discontinue the production of the 60 and 80 as you know it today. But there obviously is no logic in continuing to make something that is a loss to both of us, because ultimately, if that product were to continue to be supplied to you at the discounts you're having, you'll have another owner of the white business next year. So we have to face it. And that may not be the news you want to hear, but that's the way it is. I guess that brings us around to trying to conclude this show. And it's time for us to maybe reassess your resources, the time, the money, and the people that you have involved in developing your business. It's time to review your assets, to look at your facilities, what kind of an image you provide to your customers, the personnel that you have, and whether they're properly trained and ready to carry you forward, the products that you have in inventory, as well as the parts on the shelf to service those customers that have purchased your products in the past. And obviously the most important asset, your prospects. Do you identify with them? Do you know where they are? Do you know the ones that are pending? And the new prospects that you might develop. We believe it's time to take aggressive action. It's time to make something happen. It's time to get going. To promote the AGCO identity, it's something you can be proud of. To take a new story to the farmer, one that's solid, strong, impressive. You don't have to apologize for. You don't have to make excuses. To make calls on new customers and carry that message. to accelerate the demonstration programs that are available, and to promote your parts and service, which is the key to developing your following in your community, and to firm up those sales that might be pending out there as the harvest gets underway. Yes, AGCO is the new kid on the block. We think we've built an image as being a little aggressive, perhaps bold, and we hopefully bright and better than it was in the past. We hope that you recognize that AGCO is capable. We have products, tremendous range of products that exemplify the quality that you should be proud of. We have the support systems ready to go right now. We don't have to wait for them in parts and service, warranty, and all the operators' manuals and parts books and everything else ready to go. We believe we provided you with a competitive product that has real value, that you might be able to get a few dollars more for and not deal just in the price arena. We believe AGCO is identified as being stable. We have no bank debt. We didn't use Ford to buy anything. We're profitable, and I think you'd have to acknowledge that at least we've indicated to most of our publics at this point that we're well managed. We are a growing company. We're U.S. owned. We've brought back companies to this nation, and we have results we don't have to apologize for. You too can share in this movement and this excitement that's caught us up at this time. Let's not forget for a moment that we face some very awesome competition and a continuing challenge for whatever they do. But remember, for all of us that have lived on the edge just a little bit, we're in this game. We haven't been forgotten, and we're not left on the sideline to see what's going to happen. The past has been a time of preparation and experience, lots of trials and tribulations, lots of changes. But now we're ready. We're ready to begin our future, as I indicated to you last night, as partners for tomorrow, as you've heard all day. And our success will be measured in many ways by many critics. But the gift of opportunity, which we have, all of us, right here tonight, at this moment, cannot be wasted. And I predict it will not be wasted in this group. We're going to make something happen. And the real value of your franchise and your efforts are in tomorrow. Let's begin our future. Let's have a safe trip home. I thank you for your attendance and your attention. And if you'll turn your attention to the screens, we'll do a little review of the last 48 hours. Thank you very much.